Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm here with Matt from Crypto Heartbeat. My name is 𝘰𝘰𝘯𝘕, of course, and we're going to have an interview, have a good discussion, and this is going to be awesome. So let me allow Matt to introduce himself right here.
Absolutely. Benito, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, so my name's Matt, and I'm the founder of the Texan token, but also got a YouTube channel called Crypto Heartbeat, and we've got a number of groups. Compassion Cartel is a good example of that, but really all about building community in crypto and helping tokenize communities. My background is in fundraising. For 22 years, I worked in the fundraising world, helping nonprofits raise money and use technology to do that. And it wasn't up until the Pulse sacrifice, the Richard Heart ecosystem sacrifice, where he encouraged people to give to the Sens Foundation in order to do token distribution for Pulsechain. And I was so inspired because he raised $27 million in about 19 days for a charitable organization, and that got me really excited about, hey, this is really a powerful way to help organizations raise money and launch cryptocurrencies into new communities of trust. So super excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. And before we actually get started, I usually do this with all my guests. Can you tell me something interesting about yourself that's not necessarily related to crypto? Um, something
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one of my hobbies is knife making.
nice.
So I just like turning off everything electronic and just grinding metal and making things. And so
Mhm.
really enjoy carving wood, and really knife making is kind of a cool hobby that most people don't know I do.
I used to watch the show on Discovery Channel where they make ancient knives or swords too. They
Yeah.
make different weapons, yeah, and then
Yeah,
they
like a Forged in Fire, I think, is one
yeah,
of those ones. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that stuff. It's just it's neat craftsmanship. I like anything that's handmade.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. So you kind of explained it at the beginning, but what exactly is Crypto Heartbeat? That's just the name of your channel,
Yeah,
or
so yeah. So, back I started in October of last year
Mhm.
when I found out that Richard Hart was going to fork Ethereum. And that's obviously the Ethereum fork is called Pulsechain. And we're getting really close to launching that, but it's been about almost 2 years now. And so I started that because I thought that was one of the biggest new opportunities in the crypto space. And I really admired his desire to build a vertically aligned ecosystem. And that's really what got me started with Crypto Heartbeat. But I also, honestly, I'm 50 years old. Most of the people in crypto are younger people, and I wasn't hearing people talk about the things I wanted to talk about. So I said, well, if I want to hear that stuff, I might as well start saying it. So that's really what started it, and it's really evolved and been really cool because I like to focus on what's at the heart of the matter, the philosophy, the why behind, why are we doing this and how this can potentially change the world.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, right here is your page. I encourage all of you guys to go visit his page, watch his videos. I've been watching your videos actually for a really long time, like over a year
Oh,
now,
cool, man.
just so you know.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
most of my new stuff is in live. So
okay.
I do a live stream pretty much every day, Monday through Friday.
Okay. Oh, every day, Monday through Friday. Nice.
Yep.
What time?
It's usually kind of midday. I
Okay.
don't really have a set time, but usually midday.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Um, yeah. So I also have a crypto channel, 𝘰𝘰𝘯𝘕. Obviously, everyone
Yeah.
that's watching this knows what it is. But in case this is on Instagram or something or Twitter, 𝘰𝘰𝘯𝘕 is also my channel. Yeah. So, what actually made you get started in the crypto community to begin with?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my brothers were very into computers and they
Mhm.
were older than me. One of my brothers worked for Apple in the early days, and then my other
Nice.
brother he still works for Microsoft. And
Okay.
so it's a real interesting kind of, they were all into computers, really early days. Like my brother's building computers in the house. And so I was really interested in technology, but not the way my brothers were. And so, it wasn't until years later I started a business in a startup in the nonprofit space and ended up running that business for 10 years. We had 200 employees. We bought 4 companies. It was a large and fast growing full service fundraising agency.
Nice.
But it wasn't until about 2015 when I remember the day because our investor said, "Hey, let's look into mining Bitcoin." And so at that point in time, we were looking at hardware and looking at the costs, and we did a pro forma on, what the potential returns could be. But this is when Bitcoin was at $414. And I remember thinking, there's just no way it'd have to go to $800. And I'm like, there's just no way this is going to work out. And so we decided not to do it.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of Bitcoin, and my oldest brother had, it's funny, he had a friend who lost his Bitcoin. He couldn't get to it, and he had so much of it that this guy told my brother, "Hey, if you find my Bitcoin, I'll give you half of it."
Wow.
And so my brother found it on his computer and traveled around the world on this guy's Bitcoin. But that was really the introduction to it. So I've always been kind of aware of what's happening in the technology, but I was working with nonprofits, which were really behind the curve. And it really wasn't until I saw an ad on late night television. It was a cable TV ad, and it said, "Do you want to get rich?" And I'm like, okay, what's this all about? And it was hex.com. And I saw it. I'm like, you know what? So I threw $600 into Hex 2 days before big payday. And every day I'd come home to the house and have dinner with the family. And I'd tell my wife, "Hey, you know that $600, it's now $1,200. She's like, "Oh, that's great." She's like, "That's not real money." And I'm like, well, and then every day I'd come home and it was like, it's 5,000, it's 7,500, it's 10 grand, it's 12 grand, it's 15 grand. And she's like, "That's not real money every single time." And I said to her, "All right, fine." So my daughter was turning 16 and I sold and bought her a car. And so it proved to my wife, and that was a big thing. Like she had to like, it's real money. See, it actually does things. And so, that was my introduction really to, something pretty amazing. And that got me into the community, and I started watching Hexo and RG3 and all these people in the community. And I just, it was really the community of regular people. That's what I liked about the Hex community. Was it wasn't a bunch of posers. These are real people with real problems. People are facing addiction and challenges in their lives. And I'm like, I can relate to this group of people. And then I started going to events and started a channel, and it's been awesome. It really has been.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That actually reminds me of, there was a guy that lost his Bitcoin in the garbage, actually. And then he had to get the city ordinances to allow him to dig in the landfill and everything. And I still don't think he's been able to find his.
He found it. So he found it, and it ended up being Bitcoin Cash. And he he had spent so much money that the value of it didn't even cover the cost. So it wasn't actually Bitcoin when they found it. Isn't that funny?
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow. All that for nothing. So he ended up losing money after he was done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he thought he had a lot more than he did.
Yeah. Bitcoin Cash now I think it's like $140 or $130.
Yeah. And he thought it was like 69,000.
Yeah.
Nope.
That's he has a lot of opportunity to do it himself. Even the first time I heard that, I was like, don't feel bad, because Bitcoin is only going to continue to increase in value as time goes on. So it's not like he's too late. So
no, and if you look at what's happened really in the last 3 to 4 days, I mean, this is a big shift because of the lack of confidence in the Federal Reserve System and fractional reserve banking. Now we've got we're seeing all these people go into Bitcoin and crypto as a store of value. And I see things have really, really shifted here recently with all these bank failures.
Yeah, it's actually getting ridiculous. There was another bank that failed today, or is on the verge of failing.
Yep.
And I think that's part of the reason why you would think that it's a risk-on asset, that's a risky asset, but people are starting to believe in the power of Bitcoin, especially during the bear market, where it's actual crypto people that's into Bitcoin now.
Yep.
So people are pulling their money out and they're putting into a more stable asset of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think that when I was younger, it was gold, right? Everybody go into gold to hedge themselves, and of course, generationally, it's a lot easier to deal with Bitcoin than obviously physical gold. And so, you see a lot of institutions, you see a lot of governments, realizing, hey, and I think that was driven also by the war between Russia and Ukraine as well. You saw a lot kick that way because of the sanctions. So yeah, everything's changing in the world. You got the BRICS nations who are forming together, pushing against this kind of dollar-dominated system. And I think we're going to end up seeing, this is the fall of the Western civilization, in my opinion. And we're going to see a lot of fallout from this as the dollar declines. and people seek alternatives.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. You brought up the BRICS, which is, if people don't know, that's Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They're coming out with their own type of currency. They're doing stuff. Many people are saying they're going to come out with a digital dollar version of their BRICS in addition to, the paper currency. When do you think that's going to come out? If it's going to come out, will the great power of America and its omnipotent military allow this to happen, or does America not really have the power to
Yeah, it's interesting is you think about everything in the past has been denominated in dollars, all the debt, and in the world is so interconnected now, and economies are so interconnected that I think what we're going to see is what happened with sanctions, right? We saw the ruble fall tremendously when the war broke out. All these sanctions were put on, and then it went right back up. And we see, all right, people are doing business outside of the dollar for energy, for all these things. And of course, more and more is going into crypto. It's, I think the BRICS nations, we're forcing this into it. We're forcing them into this because of the incentive that they have. I mean, the biggest threat to the world is the forever wars and the business of war from really an imperial America. And, I think all my life I thought, we're the good guys, right? We're the good guys. And I think when you see people saying, hey, they've been pretty clear. And I think it's illustrated probably the best with the warning since 2014 from Russia, to NATO. And so, yeah, I think it's inevitable. When it comes, I think they're building, or they have built, an alternative to the SWIFT system. And we see other countries that are coming in to use their version of transaction. But I think the natural progression is, get some sort of digital version, or, just start trading in Bitcoin or Ethereum. I'm not as up to speed as I should be probably on what BRICS is actually doing. But I mean, there was news today that the alliances are growing stronger and stronger because they see this threat. And, I think a lot of it's driven by just almost the insanity that they see in U.S. policy. I mean, the woke culture, all this stuff, they're just like, you guys are corroding from within. And it's like, we're not going to be on this ship as it sinks. We need to have an alternative. So we're not doing ourselves any favors.
Yeah, it's definitely true. A lot of people, a lot of countries are developing their own currency, their own coins. And in fact, you are developing your own token called Texas Token. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah.
Like what exactly it does?
Yeah. So here's what actually happened. I saw Richard Hart do that with the Sens Foundation, and I was doing traditional fundraising counsel to the Texas nationalist movement. And I said to them, you want to raise $1 million or $1 billion? And they're like, let's raise $1 billion. I said, well, you're going to have to tokenize your community. Your community's 444,000 members, and they care about Texas independence. You care about getting a vote, a referendum on the ballot in Texas for independence. I said, why don't we come alongside you? We'll help you raise money. We'll do token distribution of a zero value token called Texan. You can find it at texan.cc there. And what has happened is we were planning on coming out on the Pulsechain, and the Pulsechain didn't launch yet. And so we made an agreement to go out on Ethereum. Well, 2 days ago, we've got a price chart, right? It came out on January 6th. And yesterday we went up, or 2 days ago, we went up 63% in one day. And it's really an amazing testament to that organization because, the big thing we talk about in crypto all the time is no coiners. The great trophy is how do we get new people into crypto? And in my opinion, it's through the tokenization of communities of trust. And this isn't my original idea. This is, Raoul Pal, who talks about macro. He's a former Goldman Sachs guy. He talks about this, social tokens and tokenizing communities, because the hardest thing to do is to build trust. And so we basically give these gifts into these communities of a immutable contract that is DeFi, trustless yield, no admin keys, that enables them to have an endowment. And so we've created the first endowment token on the blockchain. It's called Texan Token. And the principle of an endowment is that you would lock up your principal for interest or yield that you can scrape without penalty at any time. So that creates essentially the cash flow that you need, because an endowment in a nonprofit scenario is where you lock up, your investment dollars to create investment income. And so we've mimicked that financial product on the blockchain, and we're using it to tokenize communities. The first one being the Texas Nationalist Movement and Texas Independence at Texan.cc, and that has caught on amazingly. There's about 23,000 holders of that token. And then our second project is in the Philippines with a group called 𝘰𝘊𝘃 that has 3,000 churches, and it's called 𝘊𝘰𝘃. And so we're going to continue to do this, tokenizing communities where there are large, groups of people that have trust with one another.
Okay. So with this scraping, I know it's 5% annually, but you also said it's 87%. So is it 5% or 87%? How does that work?
Good question. So if you look at the white paper and you can scroll down to the bottom of the white paper, there's a yield curve. So the base rate is 5%. And the reason it is because that's the standard for nonprofits of what they want to get from their investment income. They want a minimum of 5% on their money. And so what we decided to do was say, all right, the base rate is 5%, but if you're willing to wait longer, we'll give you essentially a bonus multiplier. And so what we've done is we've mimicked compounding interest. And we said every year that you hold or every day that you hold, you're going to be able to see it. So scroll all the way down to the bottom and you're going to see, there it is, the yield curve. Okay, so year one, 5%. Well, if you held it 2 years, you're going to get a total of 11 because the second year is 6. But if you had a 22-year stake, which is the maximum length, you would have 236% in year 22. But the total of all of it together is 1,881%. But the average over 22 years is 87%. So it's very simple. And if you're familiar with HEX and how HEX works, it's a T-share model where, and we do the same thing. We burn, and then you have this ability to essentially earn yield. Well, in this scenario, we have the list of specifically, itemized interest in the contract versus kind of a daily T-share rate that HEX has. So it's very predictable, but I think the big differentiator is that you can scrape your interest at any time. However, let's say after 5 years you scrape on that one stake, you go back to the 5% interest to fulfill the rest of your time.
Okay.
But you can have unlimited stakes. You can have unlimited stakes. Okay,
that's awesome. That even makes it better than HEX, because HEX you can't pull out early. And if you pull out early, you receive a penalty. And HEX right now has about a 40% average APY.
Yep.
But that's that's the average, right? So some people, I even did a stake for only a year. I only received about 5%, 6%. But if I did 15 years, which is the longest, I would have received like 80 something percent, over 100%. So it depends how long you keep it. So that's actually really good.
Yeah, and it's actually, I don't consider it better than HEX. I consider it different in this respect. HEX has got these components where the bigger that you go, the better it is for you. And that, longer pays better for us, but longer and bigger pays better in HEX. So it's more sophisticated. We wanted to keep things simpler. And I think it's complicated. It's hard to understand T-shares and all that stuff, but they mimicked a certificate of deposit product and we mimicked an endowment. But yeah, I think the net effect of it is similar. But what has happened with HEX is a number of derivative products have been created, which enables people to monetize their stakes, which is really the effect of scraping.
So like you said, the price is going up dramatically. It's gone up dramatically in the last week. What nefarious evil things have you done to make the price go up? I was looking at it. The price is up like, let me see. 279% in the last 30 days. And it's been up like maybe 600, 700% in less than 2 months.
Yeah.
What have you guys, why has it gone up so much?
Well, here's what's crazy about it. I mean, there's not one answer to that. But here's the thing that I think you realize. We airdropped anybody who wanted to claim Texan tokens. So first we started with an existing community of people. They gave to the organization that they most cared about. They received free, no value tokens. And then anyone who had sacrificed for PulseX, or had HEX stakes could also claim. And so that's how we got so many holders. Well, of course, everybody, there's a period once you launch, they'll dump on you. But people also in the HEX community understand delayed gratification. They understand this type of crypto, and they've been trained by Richard Heart to not pick up pennies in front of freight trains, right? So you don't, so immutability, all the boxes were checked. We were, we're known in the community, we're trusted in the community, and people are trained to hold. And we know that buying and holding is the only thing that drives price. So I think what you're seeing over these last several days is people just awareness, just an increase in awareness and the change in the market. Because,
Right.
we saw this big pump Bitcoin was up 17% at one point a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And that was a big shift. And so, we kind of caught that wave. And, it's one of those things where, when somebody finds something and they've seen this kind of thing before, they kind of sniff it out and go, all right, does it meet all the criteria? The other thing about it, I think, that is also contributing to this is the message that we have, Brandon and I, as co-founders of the Texan Token, we're speaking to a more mature audience. And it's not a degen message. It's a message of being considerate of other people. It's about serving other people. It's about utilizing this to unlock value. And that message just doesn't resonate with 𝘰𝘰𝘯𝘕 folks. And so, but guess who has the money? It's not the 𝘰𝘰𝘯𝘕 folks who have the money. It's the people that are mature that have the money. And so I believe that the real long-term success of Texan is related to the organization itself and its membership. And so our real challenge, it's an immutable contract. We can't change it. It's really education of what DeFi can do for a community like the Texas Nationalist Movement or in the Philippines for Ophir.
Okay. So the Texas Nationalist Movement, isn't that similar to, I think America fought a really, really big war a couple hundred years ago or 150 years ago called the Civil War. How is this different than, it sounds as if you guys want to separate yourselves from America.
Yeah.
How is that going to work out?
Yeah. Well, it's a mystery, right? No, I think different than, Civil War. So, Texas was an independent nation for 9 years, starting in 1836. So we won our independence from Mexico. And there was an agreement when Texas joined the Union. And when you look at just the people of Texas, it's a different culture. It's a very independent minded. It's different, right? It kind of acts as its own nation now.
The Lone Star State.
Yeah, and because it has those roots of independence, and also because of everything that's going on in the world. So after the New Deal, the government basically shifted into, we're going to take care of everyone. And look how that's worked out, right? And so you've got all these programs, and the federal system with its regulations and all of this has become so cumbersome that you try to push back. You send somebody to Washington, and what do? You get more of the same, right? And one of the things you have to do a lot of times is, you have to call people's bluff, right? They think, oh no, everybody's just going to do whatever we say. And look at Canada, right? The truckers say, hey, we don't like this. And what do? They freeze people's accounts. The people up in the Netherlands, all of the globalists are saying, hey, we've got to get rid of nitrogen, and, all of these greenies that are wanting to, control the climate stuff. And they're putting farmers out of business. And then unrest is increasing. Well, what options do we have? And so, one of the things that people don't relate to is, and I talk about this all the time on my channel, you do not get your rights from the state. And it was very clearly outlined in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equally, right? We're all created equal, and we're given certain inalienable rights by our creator, not by the state. And so we form this government because we think it's the best thing that's going to help us have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But when it becomes, too cumbersome, it is our right and it is our duty to brush these things off, abolish, or change them. And so really what we're doing and what we are supporting with the Texan Token and what the Texas Nationalist Movement is doing is to say, we want to give the people of Texas a right to vote on independence. Well, recent polls have shown 66% of Texans would vote for independence. What does that say? That says, hold on, you only need 50% plus one. So if the vote was held today, it would go through. So this is not some armed conflict. This is not, people often talk about treason. They don't know what they're talking about. This is how you go about changing your political system if that's what you desire. And so all we're asking for is that, well, a House bill 3596 was just introduced a week or so ago in the Texas House, because we're in session right now, and that just got assigned to committee today. And so it could get basically, if things get worked out committee, we may see ourselves having a referendum in November, and the people of Texas will vote. That does not mean that Texas is separate. It means that now the people of Texas have spoken, and let's investigate for the next 2 years what it would take to be independent. So I think people have a misunderstanding of what actually is going on here. This isn't like a bunch of hillbillies with guns. No. This is a political movement. It's the largest political movement outside of the political parties that basically are saying, hey, we want to push back on this, and we think we can go it alone better than being a part of the union. It doesn't mean that Texas goes anywhere, but this is the peaceful way that people have within the system to push back. And that's what I actually like about it, is that it's reasonable. It's not a bunch of weirdos. So that's why we supported them.
Now, that's true. That is a good way to do it. That's the most peaceful way to do it. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of pushback, though.
There already is. Yeah.
There's immense pushback from the federal government. They definitely don't want to do it. Texas, I think, is the number 2 economy in the entire nation.
It's but it's number 9 in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Texas provides a lot of money for the economy, provided a lot of money for the federal government.
But here's the thing I think that's really important to relate to. You are an independent sovereign person, right? And here's the thing. So the policies in California, the policies in New York, what do we see? You have the right to move anywhere you want in the United States, right? So what are people doing? They're voting with their feet. They're leaving the policies and the taxation of California, and they're coming to Texas. They're doing the same thing from New York to Florida. Well, people can easily do that. You can move, right? Well, the misconception that people have is that the federal government is a thing, and what it is really made up of a group of people who are citizens of the United States. And this idea that the government's going to do something. Well, no, what's interesting is the United States has had a history of supporting independence movements across the world. Now, when it comes home to roost and you're like, whoa, one of our states wants to be out, there's going to be a lot of debate. But here's the thing. The right way to do it is to ask the people, because the government receives its power. Obviously, all political power is inherent in the people, and we give that power to the government to create these rules, and we have representational republic. The misconception that people have, because it's gotten so big, is that, well, they're in charge. It's a monarchy, like they're the kings, and we have to bow down to them. And actually, that's not the system that we're in. And people think that because that's how the government's acted. They've censored things, they've done all these things, and they give the impression to the regular person that we get our rights from the state, and we don't. We get rights from God, and we get to choose how we want to live. And so it's going to bring up a really interesting conversation, and there will be a lot of pushback, but here's the funny thing people don't recognize. There's no authority over you. Like the government itself has rules, and you've got the courts, and you've got laws and all that, but that's an agreement that we make. That's the social compact. That's what we agree to. But here's the thing. If you don't like that, you could go somewhere else, right? You could literally move out of the country. You could renounce your citizenship if you wanted to as an individual. But we like it here, and we want it to be better for our families, and we want it to be better for our, just the opportunity. So what do? Well, you get together and you say, hey, we don't like this. We'd like to go this way. And, the peaceful way that it's happened, people don't realize in 1950, there were just over 50 countries. There's 194 countries now. Yeah. Well, where do you think they came from? There's more than one a year that has become independent. And I think a lot of people don't, when you look into this, it's not as rare as people think it is.
It's not as rare, but almost the vast majority of those countries were created through violent conflict. So that's what people are afraid of. And if, in fact, it happened in America, we try to separate ourselves through violent conflict. So people are afraid that,
Yeah, I'm gonna push back. I would actually say colonialism is actually what created the most of them, and then they were peacefully transitioned. There have been armed conflicts, but if you actually look at the British Crown, if you look at Western Europe, a lot of these, just look across Africa, you look across the world, most of these were part of the Commonwealth, or they were part of colonization, and they then wanted their independence. And so actually, I would say the majority of the countries that were created, the fall of the Soviet Union, you've got Kazakhstan, you've got these, there weren't, there was a fall of something, or the colonies themselves said, hey, it's time that we're independent. So I think that's a bit of a red herring, that it has to be violent in order for it to be separate, and it just doesn't have to be.
Okay, that's true. Okay, so the compassion cartel, what is that exactly? How does it differentiate from Texas Token or your YouTube channel? What is it
It
exactly?
was just so it's funny. So I got so excited about the pulse sacrifice
Hmm.
that I recognized, like I had met a guy and he sacrificed $15 million for Pulse.
Wow.
And I just did a little back of the napkin math on that.
Wow.
And I'm like, $15 million, if this goes, 300x, 1000x, which it could be way more than that,
Hmm.
this is a guy that's going to be sitting on billions of dollars
Yeah.
of value.
He might even be the richest person in the world if
Yeah.
it
Like,
goes that high.
well, besides Richard Hart, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I looked at it and I thought, you know what are people going to do with that kind of abundance? I mean, you
Mhm,
can only drive one car, wear one pair of pants. I mean, you get to a certain point where you kind of got it out of your system. You're like, I can have anything I want.
mhm,
And then you kind of go, well, what should I be doing and how can things change? And so we said, hey, let's get together, people that care about making a change. And what if we were to have the greatest decentralized VC firm possible? Meaning everybody said, I'm going to take $100 of my Pulse sacrifice, which, million Pulse points. And
mhm,
I'm gonna just commit to giving them away. That's it. And maybe I'll just connect with some other people in community. And let's say you and I really like poverty. We like to help people that are in poverty, or maybe you like animals, or maybe you like the environment, I don't care what it is. Let's get together and let's talk about what we care about. And then let's say you want to give, you call me up. You're like, Crypto Heartbeat, man, I know you like poverty stuff. I really like this thing over here. Let's drill some wells. Well,
mhm,
it's just going to help you be more effective because you and I are on the same page. So really, it's more of a community. It's a Telegram group, pulsepromise.com, and it's just people who are like, hey, yeah, I want to think about contributing to a better world through giving, and so that
mhm.
just comes out of my philanthropy background. But it's not a token, it's nothing. It's just a group of people who care. It's a great group. But right now we've been waiting so long for the
I
Pulse chain to
know.
launch.
It's ridiculous too. Yeah, we are waiting for Pulsechain to launch. We're waiting for our riches, but that's even part of the reason why I started this channel too, because we all know I'm in the Zen community also.
Yeah.
We all know that we're all going to be making money. Maybe we won't be millionaires in this bull run, but we'll definitely be millionaires by the next bull run that happens in
Yep.
2029. So what are we going to do with our time? What are we going to do with our money? What are we going to do with ourselves when money is no longer really an object, right?
Yep.
What are you going to do with your time? And I like the fact that you're creating the compassion cartel to make use of your time, because what happens with most rich people is that once you have a lot of money, your next pursuit is power.
Yes.
Money is power itself, but you want to use but it depends, what do you want to use your power for? So I like the fact that you're trying to use your power to help those that are less fortunate. And that's why I'm even trying to do it myself.
Yep.
Eventually I'm going to become wealthy with this or whatever. What I plan on doing is just educating people to become wealthy also.
Yeah.
I'm Nigerian too. My heritage is Nigerian, everything, even though I was born here. So what I want to do is educate people in the African American community, or just the African community,
Yep.
of how to get into crypto itself. Nigeria is the #2 or #3 crypto heavy based country in the entire world.
Yep.
Right. So I know they're already ahead of the game, but I want them to be even further.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm creating the channel. That's why you're creating Crypto Heartbeat and you're creating Compassion Cartel. And this is absolutely amazing. So I don't want us in the crypto community to use our power for evil, because some rich people create things such as the ETF,
Yeah.
or I mean not ETF, the
World Economic Forum.
World WEF, yes, World
Yeah.
Economic Forum, right? So you
Yeah.
can use your power for good, or you can use your power. I'm not saying that they're evil, right? YouTube, don't censor me, please. Don't
I'd be happy
demonetize me.
to say it.
But I don't want YouTube to demonetize me. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to use your power for good, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important for this to happen.
Well, and I think fundamentally, you're making a really good point.
Mhm.
Think about somebody that's in a remote part of Nigeria,
Mhm.
and let's say that you educate them and they understand about DeFi and they understand this opportunity. I think what's so crazy is we've seen Bitcoin, we've seen Ethereum, we've seen things go up so much, and we want to be a part of that. And the basic benefit to you is like, hey, I can get my time back and I might be able to do some good and I can get my head above water. There's so many people that have been struggling because of an extraction-based system, right? We've gone into places like Nigeria and taken everything. I mean, it's classic Western thought, which is go in, take everybody else's stuff.
Mhm.
And this is a different era. And I think it's guys like you and me who are saying to people, hold on a second, there's enough to go around. And we need to educate ourselves and get into community and care about things on the ground. Because to me, it's so classic. You know, the rich guy in America, even the rich person in the West who wants to help, thinks that throwing money at stuff is how you solve it. And what they don't realize is, no, you actually got to be on the ground and know what's going on. Money is a piece of it, but there's a lot more to making a difference than just throwing money at stuff. And a lot of people, I think, that are in philanthropy want to be seen giving. They don't really want to make an impact. And so I like the idea of decentralize the money. Let the people in Nigeria make their own damn decisions. They give them the resources and let them decide. And that whole idea of decentralization is extremely powerful. And that's, I think, the promise of the future. It's not just, you know, hey, we'll get rich and we'll help you. No, let's get you rich and you help you. And to me, that's a whole different paradigm than what we've built the last, 20th century on.
Yeah, so they actually created the digital naira, which is the currency in Nigeria, but the citizens didn't like it. They didn't take it.
Well, that's the CBDC, isn't it? I mean, that's the pilot program of the CBDCs from Ripple. Yeah.
So they're trying to make a CBDC for Nigeria, and the citizens were like, no, we don't like it. There's a culture in Nigeria where people like to pay with money. Like if you go to a party, when you're dancing, people like to spray you with money. It's a real cultural based thing where everyone in the country loves to hold physical dollars because, you don't trust the government as much. So it makes sense to put your money under your mattress than to just keep it in the bank. So when they said they were coming out with a digital version, everyone was like, no way in hell we're going to do this. So it doesn't work. So now they're thinking of doing incentives of, giving people discounts on if they use the digital version of the naira versus the paper version, which I believe America and all the other countries are going to do too. So it's just funny seeing it play out. And
my fear is it's not going to work that way either, and they're not going to get the adoption they need. And so my fear is that the real plan is the next time we have some big issue, right, like a health emergency, and shutdowns or something like that happens, is they're going to have a catalyst, and then they're going to say, all right, the only way you're going to get your money, right, the only way you're going to get this, any help from the government is you're going to have to get our wallet, and you're going to have to use the CBDCs. And so I think it's going to be more by force than it is by option. And that's played out because I think the Bahamas and Nigeria were the two pilot programs, and it was like 10% adoption. And we're like, we can't make this work with 10% adoption, so we're going to have to mandate it. And of course, what's happened when the government mandates and centralizes everything? So, my dream, Benito, is that the people of Nigeria would be able to tokenize themselves. And it's decentralized DeFi. It's not government controlled. They can't mess with the supply. And the people in the community rise up and they agree on what the value is. It's their own version of fiat currency. And that, to me, that's the essence of what we're doing as a team, is we're saying to people, there is another way. You just have to care about your neighbor, dude. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, Nigeria already is heavily involved in Bitcoin.
Yep.
They're heavily involved in Cardano. Cardano is creating a system where you have identity that's tied to cryptocurrency. So Nigeria is already heavily involved in it. So Nigeria is already heavily involved in digital assets, digital currency. So for them to try to push the government version, it's not. I don't think it's going to work. Nigerians are already using the naira, right? Because they have to. So for them to think that they're going to automatically force people to use the
government's late to this party. They're too late, and they do not like competition.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so I'm sure you're a Pulsechain fan. You're a PulseX fan.
Yes.
When Pulsechain, sir?
When Pulsechain, sir? Yeah, great question. Well, I pay attention and read between the lines with Richard's post. He went from being all this outrage marketing now to talking about his past as and I think that's he knows what's coming. He's going to get a lot of scrutiny. He's going to get a lot of press, and so he's kind of scrubbed everything that was all the glam stuff to try to get people. And now you can tell from what's happening in the GitHub, you can see the activity that's there. His updates have been extremely detailed. And this last post that he made me think that the Pulsechain testnet v3, which he said will probably be 2 to 4 weeks before mainnet, I think is coming in the next 15 days. So, and I've been talking about it for a long time, and I really believe that we're within 15 days of Pulsechain v3 and the testnet, and then I think we're probably 3 months out from mainnet.
Okay.
So summer at the latest.
2 months. I mean, sorry, 15 days for V3, and then
Yep.
2 months from. So by the latest, it's going to come in June.
Yeah, June, July is what I would say. It's
Okay.
funny. Remember when he said last year he's like May 15th?
Yeah.
It's very possible it will be 1 year later than he predicted, which
Yeah.
would be May 15th of this year. But yeah, I'm pretty bullish on it, partly because I think that everybody was trying to determine what is he timing the market.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's harder than he thought it was. I think actually, Jack has been pretty harsh, I think. Am I thinking about right? Levin?
Yeah, Jack Levin.
Yeah, Jack Levin. He's been pretty harsh with Richard, and he made a comment once that said, it's like building a B-52 bomber next to another B-52 bomber while you're flying. Because if you're just going to fork something like, just a layer one with no system state, but there's so many intricacies in that I think it's a bigger project than he assumed it was in the beginning.
Yes.
And especially with 2.0. But I also know that he cares about what people think, right? He wants to be the guy. And so he's going to be really, really careful making sure that things are properly decentralized and don't fail immediately when they're launched. But, if there's a guy to do it, I mean, Richard Hart's got the vision for a vertically aligned ecosystem. And in my opinion, if we've got CBDCs coming and all the stuff that's happening with the Fed, it's possible that Richard Hart's going to win in the end because he's going to have the place where you can transact without all this government interference.
Yeah, so because there's no admin keys, because he's not going to be directly in control of it, even if they do hate the system, it's decentralized, so they pretty much can't stop it. Yeah. It's just going to exist. Even if they ban it in America, people will go to other, like you said, people will denounce their citizenship just to interact with Pulsechain. I can definitely see that happening. Yeah. And honestly, I think personally, I think because Richard Hart loves troll marketing, he loves outrage marketing. I really, really think it's going to come out in May, just so he can be like, see, I was right. It's going to come out in May.
It's May 15th.
May 15th. It's definitely going to come out May 15th.
Yeah.
He even said that it's 95%. The block explorer is 95% done with syncing. So 95%. So that means that V3 is coming out soon.
Yep.
I can see it coming out, later this month, V3, and then Pulsechain itself will come out 2 months after in May. Yeah. That's my prediction anyway.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, his excitement in his last post, basically he's ready for it. Yeah, it couldn't come soon enough.
Definitely. Speaking of which, this is the most juicy part that everyone likes. What is your price prediction for Pulsechain and or PulseX during this next bull market? Yeah. Which is going to happen, happening the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. What's your prediction?
Yeah. So, I haven't really updated this since I did it over a year ago. The sacrifice price essentially was 3 zeros and a 1. And so if you think of a 10,000 to 1, kind of just simple math, a 10,000x is $1. And I think that, I think it's very clear, especially with Pulse and PulseX. And I'm a big fan of PulseX for a bunch of reasons. But I think that we're going to see, in the 2 to 5 year time span, I think we're going to see Pulse and PulseX in the top of the next bull run. The very top, I think we'll see Pulse at $1. Okay.
Yeah. You say in the next bull run, you're going to see Pulse at $1.
Yeah, the top. So let's say the bull run takes three to 4 years. The next top, I think will top out, 90 cents to $1 is my gut. That's a 10,000x. And there's really no reason it shouldn't. And if you think about Hex is a weird bird because, Uniswap wasn't even popular, right? No one was going to pick up Hex on centralized exchanges, and that's all there was at the beginning. And so it had to be organic. And then, of course, he made Uniswap popular because there wasn't really DEXs, so that was an innovation. And then that slow burn and slow growth and big payday and all that stuff, to see Hex have a 10,000x in 623 days, and now to think $1.6 billion has been sacrificed for Pulse and PulseX. There's all these people who've been trained in the market, and then FTX and Celsius and everything's gone away. We got ourselves a recipe and the system state for people going, hey, it's primed for pumping. Well, now you add on top of this people losing faith in the fractional reserve banking system in the dollar, and we got a recipe for explosion.
Yeah, that's actually that's a powerful prediction of $1. Me on my page, I made a video of it a year ago also myself. My prediction is that it's going to be 33 cents in 2 years, 3 years, whatever the top of the bull market is, 2025,
That's probably more realistic.
Yeah. Because even 33 cents is still 3,300x from the sacrifice price, which is crazy. It's insane.
Yeah.
But it's only insane if you haven't been in crypto.
Right. Yep.
So the only time you see dramatic prices of 3,000x, 4,000x is like maybe you were an early investor in Amazon or you were an early investor in Yahoo.
Yep.
That was like almost 30 years ago. So it's going to take you 30 years to get a 3,000x. Meanwhile, hopefully, we're going to have a 3,000x in 2 years, in 3 years. So it's just amazing. It's going to be cool. It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
Let's cross our fingers and see what happens when it happens. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest. And I think that Richard Heart's been so polarizing that I think the Pulse chain, what's cool about having a layer one when it's a copy of Ethereum is that it's less about Richard's personality and it's more about, hey, I got money on the Pulse chain. All the system state copies, people don't care. I mean, if I'm making money, I don't care who you are. Just make me money. And I think that that's what's driving a lot of this. And he knows how to properly incentivize people. The way he's changed PulseX to have buyback and burn, how he's made it deflationary, all of these things. He's an innovator. That's what he is. And he's got a vision for things to be vertically aligned. And I don't see anyone else out in the market, talking the way Richard does. And it's hard to listen to him sometimes.
Do you think that's part of the reason why he's been gatekept? Because even if you go on a lot of his coin is not really listed for example, on CoinMarketCap on CoinGecko, they don't list his market capitalization. On CoinMarketCap, they have him at like number 200 when it should really be like number 11 or 12 for Hex. I'm talking about. Hex is not number 200. Hex is definitely number like 10 or 11 or around there. So why are they gatekeeping him? Is it because of his outrage marketing, or is it just because the crypto community is supposed to be decentralized, right? We're supposed to allow all people in, no matter whether you like them or not. The only thing that you're supposed to care about is about the money or about the ability to transact with this decentralized coin. So why are people still trying to act like a new version of the government to allow this person to talk, but to not allow this other person to talk?
Well, I think you have to go back to the origin. When you look at the first time that Richard talked about his new project called Bitcoin Hex, that's what it was called. He got up in front of a bunch of Bitcoin people and he said, I'm building a better Bitcoin. And then for the next several years, he was right and he rubbed their noses in it. And he's arrogant and he's confident and he's smarter than everybody. And he's made people look like a fool and he's never let it go. He's reminded them every single turn that they're idiots. And I think that, some of us like that. We like this brash boldness. But I think reasonable people who are like, hey, I'm just trying to get along here, you've gone too far. And I think what happens is when you've lost somebody, it's the same thing that happened to Trump. There are people who might like the policies. They may like some things, but they just cannot even sit and listen or look at the man. And I think the same exact thing of why people viscerally hate Trump is the same thing that Richard's got. And part of it is pride. Part of it is style. But, at the end of the day, he is not Hex. Hex is immutable code. And so if you're I'm not going to miss opportunities because somebody isn't my style. I'm smarter than that. But a lot of people, I think, have vendettas, right? They're like, you made me look foolish because you are foolish, but I'm not going to let that go. And so we're just going to hold you back. But in a way, what they didn't realize is that created an enemy for the community. And so it galvanized the community. And now we've got like the greatest community in crypto that loves each other. And I think that it's a miracle to me. It's a miracle to me that if it wasn't for all that gatekeeping, there wouldn't be a strong community. So it really actually has served the long term because it kept us off exchanges. It kept us off of this, and it was a pure DeFi message that really couldn't have been pure if everyone accepted it.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of backfired because
Yeah.
if I were the people that have these exchanges and I hated Richard Hart, I would just like try to learn from him,
Yeah.
take some of the good things that he does, even if though I don't like him, right? I'll try to take the good thing that he does and try to incorporate it with my own coin or incorporate it with my own business practices.
Yep.
It's almost like if you can't beat him, join him, right?
Yeah. That's
So I think
that's because you're smart.
yeah, they went about it the wrong way. So when Pulsechain comes out, they're going to have to put it on their exchanges because it's going to be so dramatically popular.
Yep.
And that's actually a really good idea that Richard Hart did. Even if you don't know who Richard Hart is or what Hex is, you do have Ethereum or you do have Chainlink or you do have whatever ERC20 token. And you're going to look at your MetaMask and be like, oh, I have free coins.
Yep.
Why in the world would I not get into Pulsechain? It's just free money. Even if I don't know who he is, I'm just going to get it. I'm just going to exchange it with free money just because I want to.
Yep.
And then these other like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko are going to have to list it, and they're going to have to list it properly because they're going to seem fake if they don't do that. So it's an awesome ecosystem.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to watch, and how people respond. But that's what's so great about the revolution of crypto. It's it's peaceful, but it is fundamentally a shift of everything. I'm just, to me, everything's changing, and we're on the front end of it, man. It's still early.
Yeah, we're still very early. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I'm just curious. So, like, you're obviously, you started your channel. You're a YouTuber. You kind of shared, why you're in it. But what's your long-term goal? Like, what's your plan?
Yeah, so long term, I want to do more crypto education. I already have a course out, but I want to redo the course. Have a course system where I teach people. Maybe I'm going to have a live stream with them where people can ask me questions once a week or twice a week. They get the course, they pay for the course, stuff like that. Eventually just grow in the community, do different things like that. And just do education with crypto, because a lot of people, I think it's only about maybe 3% or 4% of the world's population actually has crypto. Even though luckily now most people know what crypto is, but most people don't own crypto. Eventually people are going to be forced to own cryptocurrency when it comes to CBDCs. So when everyone owns crypto, I want them to own the free sovereign version of cryptocurrency instead of the government version of cryptocurrency. So that takes education, right? People don't just learn this by themselves. So I just want to educate people, and then through this education purpose, make money from education. My time is not free. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Now, you have kids?
No, I don't have any kids yet.
Okay. So, I mean, you got a whole life ahead of you here.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do with all this money, dude?
Educate people.
Yeah.
Start a family, like you said.
Yeah.
Get some kids, start a family. Live a fun life in Dubai and stuff. When I'm meeting people, just all the above, right?
That's awesome. When Lambo, man, come on.
Lambo, yeah. Definitely buy a Lambo. I'm probably gonna rent a Lambo. Not even to buy it. Lambos are fun, but I heard that they're a headache. As soon as they break ground.
Totally. Yeah. You can rent the fun.
I'm sorry?
You can rent the fun.
Yeah, you can rent the fun, right? I heard that even having a oil change costs like $1,500 to change your oil. I'm like, even if I have the $1,500, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'll just rent it for a month and then give it back.
Yeah, drive around Dubai.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man. Well, it's so cool to talk with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to share any of this stuff, because whenever I talk to anybody in crypto, you realize, especially DeFi, I mean, we're all in this together.
Yeah, same here. It was really awesome talking to you too. I joined Compassion Cartel in a while, but I'm actually going to go in the I haven't really said anything in it, like maybe 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to go on a Telegram and look at it, talk to you guys.
Yeah, I think it's gotten a little bit flat because people have just been waiting so long for the Pulse chain. But once Pulse launches, we'll update that site and people can come in and connect the wallet. What we're encouraging people to do is take a fresh wallet and just put in the 1,000,000 Pulse points, which is $100 of sacrifice, and just connect. And so what we're going to do is we're not going to log anything. We're just going to basically add up the number of essentially how much Pulse is here and how much PulseX is here. How much is represented? Because what I want people to see long term, the vision is I want people to come back to, and it be a place where nonprofit organizations, people with needs, all of that stuff are saying, hey, I want to be a part of this because this is where the resources are of people who care. And, if you think about it, there's going to be a lot of value, and that I think that Telegram channel is going to become a place where people are going to be like, hey, you know this, money attracts people. And if you got caring people, well, how can we team up to make a big difference?
Yeah, it's going to be really awesome. I'm excited to see where your community is going to grow from here. So this is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Matt. It was great talking to you.
You
Let's
too.
definitely do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'll make sure I share this out with everybody, and let's let's grow this thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, talk to you later.
All right, see you, man. Thank you.
Mhm.